so much for attending. Welcome to everybody here at the newly renovated Crown Plaza Hotel, and a special welcome to our audiences on the live webcast. And I have been told that the webcast will be up on the Chamber's website afterwards. It'll be podcasted for everyone to view that way as well. My name is Eric Drozd. I'm from 570 News, and I will be moderating the forum tonight. This is the first of four municipal candidate forums organized by the Greater Kitchener-Waterloo Chamber of Commerce in advance of the October 27th vote. The Waterloo Mayor debate will be at the Waterloo Rec Complex tomorrow, September 25th, from 4 until 6, followed by the Kitchener Mayor debate at the City Hall Rotunda on Tuesday, September 30th. And the final chamber event will be the Office of Mayor in Woolwich Township, and it will be held on October 1st at the Woolwich Memorial Centre. Now, the format for the event this afternoon will be an hour for regional chair candidates, followed by an hour for regional council, and these questions are significant issues for local employers and have been advanced through the Chamber's policy advisory committees and the at-large membership. At approximately 5 this afternoon, we will invite the candidates for regional council forward for the second debate, and due to the number of candidates and the issues that we want to cover, we will try to limit the answers to 2 minutes. I'll try to keep an eye on that, and if I say time, then you could just wrap up. We'll give you maybe 10 to 15 seconds after that. As many of you are aware, there will be a number of new councillors after the October 27th vote, so the Chamber considers it very important that all these candidates are provided with a forum such as this to forward their views. At this point, I'd like to introduce in alphabetical order the candidates for regional chair. We will follow this order for the first question and then rotate thereafter, so the second candidate for question 1 will be the first for question 2. So we'll start with Mr. J. Aissa for question 1. Question 2 will go to Mr. Cole-Arnal. So let me just introduce the candidates now. J. Aissa, Oscar Cole-Arnal, Moira-Sharon Magee. We do not have Robert with us here today. Paul Myles, Ken Seiling, and John Wolfe.
Hello.
Let's get right into it. The first question to Mr. Aissa. If elected, what will you do to attract new business and investment to Waterloo Region? Also, do you support the creation of the new Economic Development Agency?
The first thing I like to do is focus on our debt level for us to becoming a region that will lower debt level, and that will automatically attract a business to our province, our region, and then by keeping our taxes down, and by doing that, automatically we'll bring some new business to our region that we need, because there are lots of people out there without a job. And what we need to do is all about the debt level we're carrying, and we'll continue raising that debt level. And by hopefully we're trying to keep it, if I get elected, under $300 million, because right now it's $500 million. By cutting it down, that will attract new businesses in the local our region.
Mr. Oz Cole-Arnal.
I don't think austerity measures will draw new business. I think what draws new business is, for example, a living wage. Around here, that would be $18 an hour, full-time, and that would be geared to inflation with good benefits. I don't just want jobs in the area, I want good jobs. Not contract labor, not guest workers, or if we have them, let them be paid good wages, then they'll go to the stores and buy. And also there needs to be very serious look at these big box stores and their wage labor. This is almost criminal. It's morally criminal to have these big box stores like Walmart and to have things like McDonald's and Tim Hortons give a lousy wage, and then they also drown out small business by that. That's just one area, but I think it's a very important one.
All right, thank you. And Ms. Moira-Sharon Magee?
I would agree with Jay that we have to definitely look at how we're taxing our individuals and our businesses in our region. and improve our, I wouldn't say it's our quality of life in the region, but in what we get to do in the region in our downtime, and make that affordable for everybody in our region. As far as this bringing all of the independent BIAs together, which is what I assume you mean by
The Economic Development
right.
Agency.
For those of you that aren't familiar with that, basically, if my understanding is correct, and this is one heck of a learning process that I'm getting here, that would be bringing all of the different BIAs together from the different areas. Is that correct? And form one, and then we would all be able to pull our strengths and dollars together and create that. Is what you're referring to?
So you would support that?
100%.
All right, thank you. And now we go to Paul Myles.
I have a question about that. Is that like because we've compounded all of the economic development strategies that used to be done by each of the cities into one, or is this talking about something different?
Am I on debate here?
No, I'm just asking a follow-up question for clarification. Sorry.
As far as I understand it, you are correct. It's what Ms. Moira-Sharon Magee was referring to, but bringing the BIAs together.
I think right now, like if I could just add one more little thing, I'm not sure if this is appropriate or I'm over my time, but for instance, if you took at Cambridge, you have a Preston BIA, Galt BIA, Hespeler BIA. We would all come together and be able to share.
So the first part of the question, if elected, what would you do to attract new business and investment to Waterloo Region?
Okay. Well, in regards to new business, I feel we should be able to look at ways that we can accommodate new businesses coming into Waterloo Region, whether it be a couple of years where they pay slightly reduced taxes in exchange for bringing in higher paying jobs. Now, in regards to the combining of the BIAs, I'm not sure that's such a good idea. I really believe, that the more diverse the businesses are that you have to base off, the stronger the overall economy will be. And by reducing it down to just one, I feel we're setting ourselves up for failure.
All right, thank you. Mr. Cole.
I think it's fair to say, and the Globe and Mail said this a few weeks ago, that there are two economic hotspots in Ontario, the Toronto area and the Waterloo region. We are attracting business, we are attracting investment and new jobs, and new jobs being created in the region. And we do that through a number of things. We're doing a number of things. First of all, by having good infrastructure, by having good community supports, by having 3 great post-secondary institutions which we work together with through accelerator centers, a whole range of things that we do. There's a lot that we do locally. I just attended a solitary this morning for a company that's expanding in the North End of the region. And really a lot of economic development is based on making sure that the people that are here are welcome and feel comfortable and can expand here and do things here. So that's probably more critical than other things. External investment is also important, and we need to do that as well. I just took a look at comparative property taxes and suggests that the property taxes are up too high here. Well, in fact, property taxes for industrial properties across this region are right in the middle of the pack for Ontario. In fact, most of Southern Ontario will below the mark. So I would say that we're in good shape that way. Our debt levels are reasonable. If you read the Moody's report, we get a AAA credit rating. That's a way of spreading costs out over a longer period of time. And our debt levels, we're not even meeting 30% of the approved debt levels would allow us to do. And so we are judicious in our use of debt. We kept it reasonably low, and Moody's has confirmed that. If anybody who wants to talk about that, the Moody's report, one of the glowing report on good financial management. That's a Moody's report which gives the AAA credit rating. I think that a number of things we have done just recently, Council took a look at the development charges, which is always an issue for expansions and for investors who want to build here. And one of the things they did do was 2 things for the industrial sector. They actually reduced the rate by 50% for the regional development charges. And they also, for those who don't know how regional development charge works, is that we always permitted a 50% expansion without development charge for industrial. And what we did is we set the clock afresh. We started to do so that somebody's already had their 50% expansion, and now as of the 1st of August, the second 50% expansion of development charges. So we made it much more attractive for people to grow their business, expand their business here in the region. In terms of the Economic Development Corporation, I think this is a great idea. We tried back in the 90s to try and get a more focused approach to economic development. We have to recognize that we're no longer competing with one another. It's not Cambridge versus Waterloo or Kitchener.
I made 15 seconds.
Okay. Anyway, this is an agreement by all sub-municipalities. to bring together a body which coordinates the work, so it's one-stop shopping for people who want a business region, and the new economic development, local economic development departments will continue, but this will be a much more coordinated approach on a higher level.
Okay, thank you. And we now go to John Wolf. John?
Yeah, those are very good questions. I think the region's done a great job with the high-tech industry. They marketed both universities, and there's all sorts of high-tech jobs, where they drop the ball as an average person. Now, we used to have all sorts of businesses here, tire plants and all sorts of things, but they all left. I used to work as a foreman at Epton. I used to be, Goodrich, and that's gone. Now it's a university where it's combined with Master, Waterloo, which is fine. But there's so many people hurting out there right now because they can't find a job just to pay their wages. Now we've got a real problem here in this area with getting people to go to work. We don't need a lot of money to survive because they get enough money from different programs that are out there. But, they got to realize there's more to life than just making enough to get by. And we got to get these industries back here somehow. And I think we can do that because Conestoga College has all sorts of high-intensive labor people. And there's lots of people working out there right now for less than $18, like Osmond said. I mean, we can have non-unionized companies come here and promote it because, they're working here now for temp agencies anyway. So these companies, and they just realize all these people need is money and benefits. Now, benefits are a big issue with this region. And we need to make sure everybody's eligible. And a lot of people aren't. I know I personally was paying for my own insulin and all my other benefits because nobody told me about there was something out there. So I did my best just to stay alive by getting my own insulin, my own needles, and it's expensive. Anyways, that's part of my story. But there's others that have exactly the same issues. They don't realize that they can get benefits. And now the region's dropped some of them. It may not be their fault, but still got to get these people benefits. Because the average person would like to work, and they like to support their family, and have a nice place to live. And we got all sorts of people coming to this area because we got clean water and we got food. Now they come from these other nations, and a lot of them have a lot of money. Because there was a time when to get into the country if you had $500,000. I don't know if that's still what's ongoing.
All right, that is time. Thank you so much.
Anyway, I haven't gotten to the second part.
Would you like 15 seconds for the second part?
Well, I don't know whose time it is.
That was 2:30 actually.
Well, I think it's a good idea that they get together and have one consistent plan instead of everybody fighting each other. And the bureaucracy is just incredibly high in this area.
All right, thank you. We'll now go to the second question. We'll start with Mr. Cole-Arnal, and the question is, how can the Region of Waterloo minimize disruptions to local businesses from the LRT construction?
That's a good question, and I don't have the answer to that. I hear that they're going to be minimized, but the small business people I talk to are very, very nervous, and where I do business are very, very nervous that in fact the disruptions, although there may be attempts to minimize them, they're concerned that they won't be minimized enough and they'll lose money and they'll have to lay off people. And I'm not sure they're wrong. In fact, I'm very concerned about that. If that were the only issue about the LRT, I think it could be worked out, but there's so many others. I won't get into it now, presuming there will be other questions. But I think that basically the big box stores at the end of the LRT and the gentrification condo developers are the big gainers. And I think small business has every reason to be worried.
All right, thank you. And we go on to Ms. Moira-Sharon Magee.
You could minimize it by canceling it. I mean, that would be a very simple solution. I'm not sure that that's the right solution. I'm definitely trying to find out as much information about this as is possible. Possibly we could ask Mr. Seiling, how much would it cost to cancel it, Mr. Seiling? And will we ever get the money again back from the governments that we have accounted? Maybe we need to bite the bullet, and you know what, pain is tough. Or change is tough, rather. And if that's what we have to go through, we have to go through that. But I'm sure there are coordination efforts that could be made. I've seen that just in purchasing the regional roads and the work that's already begun. that it hasn't begun in a very kind of friendly way,
So it-
businesses or residents.
So as far as minimizing those disruptions, what would you say?
It's very difficult to answer those questions unless you're the incumbent.
All right, thank you. And we'll go on to Paul Myles now.
What I would do in regards to minimizing the disruption that the LRT construction is going to cause, I would try to shift it to the periods of which the business is closed for. Like, I realize some of the construction will obviously have to take place while the business is open. But if we can move as much of the construction as possible to when they're not there, we wouldn't be disrupting them because they're not there. Like, their physical building would still be there, but the road work wouldn't have effect on their customers. Another question that I have in regards to LRT is, I'm just wondering why we're laying down so much brand new track when, if we were to use the existing rail lines and twin them, I think we could come out a lot further ahead without so much disruption to local businesses.
All right, thank you, Paul. And we go on to Ken Seiling.
Well, we're dealing with two very, very experienced contractors, Akron and Kiwi, which have done much of this work before and are very experienced in it. We spent a lot of time. We have contacted all the individual property owners, all the residents. We meet with them on an ongoing basis. We have a good working relationship with both BIAs who are helping us with this. They are very supportive of the project. We are providing notices. We're actually doing work in smaller segments, so the disruption is less, to try and keep businesses operating and operable. And we're trying to do each section. This is removing services, underground services, and restoring infrastructure. Many of these projects take place over time. We rebuild roads all the time. We're probably doing it on a larger scale, on larger chunks of the road rebuilding project. But these things, this isn't the first time we've had road reconstruction in the region. We're doing these smaller sections and working very closely with people to do it. I think what's most telling for me, was most telling for a lot of members of regional council, when we brought people in Portland, small business people in Portland, we were along the routes when they built the Portland LRT. And many of them were opponents at the time. They now are the biggest fans of the LRT. It's done incredibly well for their businesses, and they're very big supporters, and they've offered many times to come out here and speak to them and people and shop owners along here. So we've done a lot of work, we continue to do a lot of work, and we will speak to any concerns that we get. Signage, timing, detours, everything on the sun. We'll work our best to be quick, concise, and keep them over the money.
All right, thank you. And now we go on to John Wolf.
Yeah, the LRT is an issue that's really hot potato, I guess. And some people just don't want it. I don't know if we could do a referendum after the election or not. I don't know if it's a good idea. Personally, I like the LRT because I think it's a way of getting rid of cars. I think we should start in Cambridge, though. But, I live in Cambridge and have to come up to Fairview Mall. Maybe a lot of those people who drive those cars would use the LRT and have buses wait for them to take them to work or wherever they have to go. And another one of the people I talked to actually thought maybe we could do something from Kitchener to Guelph. We'd have to work together with Guelph. That's another busy highway. And maybe we could do something with that. I mean, it's not a bad idea, but I just think they're starting it wrong. I mean, there's ideas like having a monorail above everything, so people could, won't be disrupted while they're building it. And there's other ways of doing it, I think. I don't know where they are exactly, because they've been talking about it for 12 years. I didn't know about it until relatively recently. Sort of the whole way that nobody really pays attention to what they're doing, I guess. But I guess they've been talking about it. And I know personally, I use the buses all the time because I want to get rid of cars as much as I can, because I think they're a major cause of air pollution and climate change and all that. And I think if we get people thinking along those lines, use the buses instead of cars, go to the corner market or whatever, I think that would be money better spent doing something like that. Right now, I know they started these ion bus stations down in Cambridge. And they've taken away the GRT ones. And they took them away at the beginning of September, said 12 days, and they still haven't done anything. So I talked to the one contractor from Stephen Evans, I believe, is doing that. And he says, well, the problem is we got the specs as being flat. Well, there's a bit of a hill, so that makes a huge difference. And there's all sorts of other issues that, if you start digging up the infrastructure, they're going to find out what their forefathers buried before them, and they're going to have to get rid of that. toilet coal time. I just see that happening, so there's a lot of people.
That is time. Thank you so much. And we go to Jay.
Thank you. I'm going to go back to the chair question about the AAA reading about the Moody. You know what? In 2009, our debt was $184 million. As of end of August, it's $500 million. And as projecting by Moody, it's $548 million going to be. And this is, we didn't even start the LRT yet. Imagine when we're going to start LRT. Are we going to add another $500 million to this, our debt? Because Moody decided to give us the AAA. And remind me, when I was 19 years old, when I first came to Canada, and Bank of Montreal gave me a AAA reading with a MasterCard worth of $10,000. And guess what? In 25 days, I maximized my card. After that, it took me 5 years to pay my debt down. What I'm trying to say is, this region cannot afford this LRT. We're going to try to give the people the referendum that they were asking for, that this council did not give them the chance for the people to have a say. And that's my job, to make sure. If I get elected, when I get elected, I'll give you a chance. Every person that lives in Waterloo region to be ready for that. Next, all the business on King Street. I walked the whole King Street. I talked to every person on that street. And you know what? 90% of them, they won't be around by the time this train will be done. That's one. Number two, let's talk about a project on the Weber Street, the overhead over Weber Street. $51 million and cannot even be on time. And you're telling me $1 billion project, we're going to be on time. How are you going to prove that? 51 million, we cannot manage that. And you're telling me $1 billion, we're going to be able to be on time?
Mr. Aissa, that we do know that the LRT is coming, so the question was...
Is that what you're telling me is the deal?
The question was, yes, and the question was that it was about the disruptions.
Well, that's what I'm saying about disruption.
How would you minimize the disruptions?
It can minimize the disruption. Its construction is going to be in the way, and you know what? There's no business out there that's going to survive this destruction. And that's what I'm saying is, you know what? This is madness if we continue with this LRT stuff.
All right, thank you very much. We'll now go on to the next question. We'll start with Ms. Moira-Sharon Magee here. The question is, do you support funding for the cultural sector flowing through the Creative Enterprises organization with appropriate accountability mechanisms? And if not, how do you propose supporting the cultural sector?
I haven't read up on the cultural sector yet, but I was invited to the museum for some information about that. So, well, I believe culture is incredibly important. Culture defines us, so we absolutely need to support everybody's culture, regardless of what that culture is. There's an organization that wants to help me out here. Like, there's an organization that wants to help fund, and you're asking me if I support that?
Right.
Right,
Yes.
because the people who want to preserve their culture are looking for funding? Absolutely. I'd say we've got to help these people. We have to promote arts and culture in our region in order to have a vibrant arts and culture region, which is very important to every single person, regardless of their nationality or preferences or anything. But
All right.
I'm not familiar with the agency but
Okay.
I will be by the time I get to the museum.
All right, thank you. We go to Paul Myles. By the way, if you need me to repeat the question, I think. Yeah, sure. The question is, do you support funding for the cultural sector flowing through the Creative Enterprises organization with appropriate accountability mechanisms? If not, how do you propose supporting the cultural sector?
Well, I do support it with the necessary accountability, but that means, I hate to be like the bean counter, but it's like I need to see the receipts documenting the expenses and why you needed to spend that much money on those things. But as long as we're smart about it, I don't see why we can't support it.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. Seiling.
During the period in which time there was more work being done to support the cultural sector, the region actually did come to the table and raise an additional $500,000 to provide the cultural sector. Much of that was to support our core agencies, the symphony, the museum, the Cole-Arnal Choir, we supported and increased their money, and in fact for the symphony and for the museum, we almost doubled the money went to them. We put $142,000 into the creative enterprise for them to work with. I think Regional Council felt this time that because we were supporting those core agencies, we wanted to make sure we maintained that. We weren't prepared to give up that accountability for that money and wait and see what the success of the creative enterprise had before we consider transferring any more money to them. And so we are maintaining and protecting those money for those core agencies at the same time giving working money to creative enterprise organizations in their work. And we're waiting for some activity. The difficulty was that part of that deal, we have to remember, was that it was supposed to be a three-way partnership, try to get more federal provincial money, try to get more municipal money, and we came to the table, and did the city come to the table, but the private sector was to come to the table too. And quite frankly, the private sector hasn't come to the table the way it should have come, expected to come. We want to see more money coming out of the private sector. It can't all come out of the municipal sector.
All right, thank you. And we go to John.
Yeah, I personally support the culture and the arts in this area. I've gone to the center of the square, and I love going there and just seeing the artwork in that free art gallery that you can go to. You have different people come in there. I don't know how they get paid, but they have their 3-month period where they show whatever. And then there's all sorts of things at Center and Square, but it's a little pricey for most people. The people who go there, I think there should be seed money to have somebody go out and canvas like the universities do to get benefactors. I mean, recently the Marslands, they just donated $1 million to Laurier for something about business. Now, I don't know why you can't have someone going out soliciting that sort of thing for people who do support the arts. I mean, there's lots of people out there in this area, in the high-tech industry, who do like the arts. I mean, people like to paint. They like to see their, better halves paint. But, I mean, it's always been here. And there's a lot of great artists out there. And if we could somehow get them interested in, spending some big dollars and donating some plaque or something for them at some cultural event. Now, Cambridge has something there in the libraries and something at City Hall. I know Kitchener City Hall has a lot of things in the rotunda. And the architecture there is part of the culture, too. And we got architectural schools in Cambridge, and they're wonderful what they do down there, what they have. And they're all thinking how to make the city sustainable without cars. I think we need to get seed money for someone to go out and canvas people in the area who love the arts. And there's a lot of university professors. I'm sure if they were approached properly, they've done well for themselves. And if they can somehow do something for the community, they'd probably do well.
All right, thank you. We now go to Jay Aissa.
Well, I'm a big culture believer because I do, as a company owner, I support most of the cultures out there and every single festival out there, from Greek to Portugal to Spanish to every culture. I believe to make a strong region, you need a strong culture, and trying to help build that culture through is having a democracy between and build a strong economical development around here and business by building a strong culture in our region. And that's what I really do believe. And I don't think the region or Waterloo actually, they do spend enough time and money to embrace the whole culture idea. And that's what I think, that's one of the things I would like to do is invest in some of the festival and good one is the Jazz Festival. And I think bringing all these things to our city and the festival on the street, this is one of the biggest things that will make our community come out and learning about each other and becoming friends with each other. And that's what is going to create a better culture and better community for all of us. And that's what I believe in, investing more money in our culture.
All right, thank you. And we go to Oz Cole-Arnal.
A phrase that keeps coming to my mind is a Latin phrase, cui bono, who benefits and who pays. It seems to me that in the culture thing we have the same position. You have a large central organization making the decisions. I want to know who's represented in that. I want to know how many of the citizens. I want to back up what John said about how many people can afford to go to Center in the Square. I like what you said, Jay, about on the streets. Give me more culture on the streets where everybody can be. Oktoberfest for all its hype, and there's, I think, too much of it. At least people are on the streets doing it. Word on the street a while ago. The Jazz Festival. All of those things, cultural people are there on the streets. How many people can afford to go to Center in the Square? Not many. And yet if our tax dollars go to that, then we need to bring the prices down so people who go onto the streets for festivals can also go to Center on the Square. Cui bono. Who benefits, who pays. Keep that in mind.
All right, thank you very much. And Robert is not here, so the next question will go to Mr. Paul Myles. And this question, the priority issues of the local business sector over the past 4 years include physician recruitment, fair tendering, interest arbitration, and rising taxes. What do you consider the priority issues for the region of Waterloo over the next 4 years?
What I consider to be the priority issues for the Waterloo region for the next 4 years would be infrastructure, rehabilitation, not just the roads and the sidewalks, but also the underground services that we can't see that we depend on every day. Also, we need to have a faster bus system. Like, from my understanding with the LRT, it's only going to average 29 kilometers per hour. I believe that is too slow for it to be effectively compete against the cars that we have today. Now, from my understanding with the LRT trains that we've purchased, they can go up to 80 kilometers per hour. So it is possible for them to reach those higher speeds. It would just be necessary to take the safety measures to protect people from the higher speed trains traveling through. I also have concerns about amalgamation, because I feel that with the grouping of it all into one economic development strategy controlled by the region, I feel that we are setting the table again for another round of amalgamation, which I am strongly against. I feel, the more diverse voices that we have, the better we will be as a region, rather than just reducing it down to one voice. I feel there is strength in numbers. And those are the issues that I think would be priority for the next 4 years.
All right, thank you, Mr. Hensey.
Sir, could you please comment on the Chambers Street issue?
Well, let me repeat the question for you. The priority issues of the local business sector over the past 4 years include physician recruitment, fair tendering, interest arbitration, and rising taxes. What do you consider the priority issues for the region of Waterloo over the next 4 years?
That's a short list of 3. I think implementing our growth management strategy and then putting everything in place for that. We are one of the fastest growing communities in Ontario. We're growing. We're at low right now, only 6,600 this past year. It's been up to 9,000 and 10,000 a year for a while. So, and that's the size of a small town. We're growing with that all the time. So we need to accommodate that growth, and that's why we put in place our growth management plan, for which we want to see urban intensification. We want to see stop and rolling over green farmlands, greenfield development, consolidate our growth, and continue to make us a livable community. So we need to have the infrastructure, the transportation infrastructure. We need to have a balance system where we also do road construction. So our treatment plants up to speed and our water supply, we want to push off that pipeline as long as possible in the future to make sure that we've got a good water system in place. So infrastructure and growth management are 2 very critical things. I think the affordable housing issue is one that needs to be addressed. We're going to have a federal election coming up next year, and certainly building affordable housing is a 3-way partnership where the municipality can't do it on its own. We leverage the money that we do have between all levels at our own money. We're probably one of the top municipalities in Ontario that's investing its own money in affordable housing. We have more success, maybe Toronto, the only one's building more success than we are on certain resources. But even more critical than affordable housing piece is the question of supportive housing. And that means getting the Ministry of Health to the table. You can build all the affordable housing you want, but if you look at the money from the Ministry of Health, the supportive housing component doesn't serve that class of people. And finally, I think that we need to try and manage our taxes. We try to keep at the rate of inflation. There are things to try. The interest arbitration, for example, is one thing that we need to continue with our struggle with problems to bring interest arbitration into line. But I think our track record shows us very clearly that our property taxes, the average household here, is in the middle of the pack. We find very few communities in South Central Ontario that lower property taxes in the community.
All right. And now go to John Wolf.
Well, all those things the region's been going after the business, I think rising taxes I always hear taxes, do it right now too. Now, Moody's may give us a glowing report and say we're doing well. But when you're $500 million in debt, that scares a lot of people. So we got to somehow keep doing what we're doing and still pay down the debt. I mean, the city of Waterloo went through the same thing with Brim Park way back, 11 years ago. Came out owing $125 million. They still owe $125 million. You got to pay down your debt sometime. And somehow we got to get people to realize that, just having debentures and giving somebody some interest while we hold on to our debt is not really a good way of running a mid-sized region or city or whatever. We got to pay down our debt. And I think most people would be comfortable leaving things as it is. They don't need more people coming here. What they need to do is pay down the debt. And right now we're all basing everything on more and more people coming in. And I don't know if that's possible. Because right now just the other day somebody died falling off one of those high skyscrapers at the building in Waterloo. And that's all because, they're rushing to build things for more people coming here. I think we got to take a break somehow and start paying the debt down. And I think that would make more people happy than anything else that we're doing. And we're doing a lot of good things. I think number one is taxes, rising taxes. We don't like that.
All right. We now go to Mr. J. Aissa.
I just love listening to the council's or the chair, how beautiful job he did on the taxes. Just to run by some numbers. Last year we had 2.7% tax increase. Our wastewater was 6.89%. Now our water is 7.89%. And we're projecting that the next 4 years will be 12.9% increase. You know what? You go and talk to the people out there and tell them you're going to increase your taxes by 12.9 plus your water plus your wastewater and see how the people react to that. That's my biggest problem. I really bother me when I feel lots of time out there having a hard time paying the bills. And here, our region is in their surplus. We continue increasing our taxes. Go back to the affordable housing. By 2001, since 2001, we built over 2,062 houses out there, and that's an average of about 170 houses. You know what? The projecting for the next 5 years is 350. Only 350 that we're projecting. That's about 70 houses per year. When we got about 3,100 families out there waiting between 3 to 5 years for these houses, and then we have the money spent for RRT and investing in something is not going to be useless for the people is going to be using it every day. We have the buses. Why not invest in the buses? We got good buses out there. We got a good system out there. Let's use it. Let's focus on taking care of our community. That's number one. Number two, take care of the businesses, because without a business, nobody will have a job. So we need to look after the businesses, keep our taxes down, and we cannot continue spending. And this region is going to continue spending, and with the Moody rating, AAA rating, and the way they're planning to do it is spend another $500 million. And you know what? It's going to be all of us who's going to be paying, because when they're not there, guess what? We're still here, and we're going to be paying for it. And that's what biggest worry I have.
Now, Mr. Seiling, Mr. Aissa directed a comment right at you, and I love a little flair in municipal politics, folks. So, would you like to rebuttal in any way?
Well, I think the property tax increase last year is 1.8%, about $34 on the average household, not 2.8%.
2.74.
I would say that when I read earlier, and I could read you the numbers, property taxes in this region are in the middle of the pack for Ontario, not out of line, and they're consistent with what people are paying across the province. The average household is paying about $3,400 in property taxes. Somebody's Rogers bill is $1,200 if they have a box. And I think you get good value. You get paramedics 24 hours a day, you get police 24 hours a day, you get roads, you get buses, you get social services, people get daycare. That's all for the regional share, about $1,700 on the average tax bill. And you get all those services for that amount of money. I would say the tax increases have been reasonable and fair and consistent. Sewer and water, yes, they've been large, but sewer and water charges are driven, in fact, for the region, by the province, by provincial regulations. We have to put a high-quality effluent in the river. We have to build our two treatment plants that we're an inland community, we're the largest inland community in Ontario. So we had to do that. We have to have a water system. We have to walk into the province, but very heavy restrictions on us. We have to meet those requirements, and they've driven the prices up as they have right across the province of Ontario. So our sewer and water charges are not out of line, but they're driven largely by provincial regulations and by our needs to be good environmental stewards. We just can't keep polluting the river. We can't get poor quality water. We've got to meet those standards, and there's a cost to doing that.
All right. Thank
Can
you.
I answer that one? It's actually 2.7, and I have something to back up the 2.7 increase of taxes. And you know what? And that's what is the number out there on the internet and every search I did. So to back up that part.
Okay, so now we go to Mr. Oz, Cole-Arnal, and to you. What do you consider the priority issues for the region of Waterloo in the next 4 years?
Priority issue, I would say, is this. Stop this austerity nonsense. Austerity is not the issue. It's not financial responsibility. Share the wealth is the main thing. Share the wealth that's out there. Reduce that obscene wealth gap. How? It can be done in 4 stages, and this is what I support in terms of my own campaign. Invest in public housing. I mean in the housing. No more studies. Housing itself. Fair wage campaign. Cut the bus fares because they're hardest on poor people and people who don't have the income. And what do? You cut the very bus route that goes to the food hamper program in the name of efficiencies. That's intolerable. And there is a way to do this without upping the taxes. Municipal taxation system is the most regressive in the country. So what you do, you pressure the province and the feds to have higher income tax, more corporate tax, wealth transfer tax, a type of tax called the Robin Hood tax. They're all ways to make a fair tax, not less taxes, but a fair tax. And there's a way even to do it locally. Step number 1, my entire salary will be given over to, just as an example, it would provide over 3,000, almost 4,000 actual free bus fare to people that couldn't afford it. That's step 1. What about everybody who makes over 100,000? Why not cut their wages in the next budget by 1.86%? That's a way of closing the wealth gap. You know, if it quacks like a duck, it waddles like a duck, it looks like a duck, it's a tax. So rates are taxes, bus fares are taxes. Cut those big salaries, close the wealth gap. That's what we need in this region.
All right, and Ms. Moira-Sharon Magee?
Oh, I think we need a dose of humanity, honestly. And if I could personally ask Mr. Seiling, who has an incredible wealth of information that we all need to hear, if he could just possibly talk a little bit slower. We need to look at our financial situation here in this community. That is absolutely a given, 100%. When I sat here and I listened to him speak about the media report and I heard how you came back with your little personal sharing, when I get my credit rating, I see that I can go out and I can run up $120,000 in credit card debt today, but I haven't done that. And I'm not going to do that because I know that the money is going to have to come from somewhere. And we have in our region an incredible amount of people that don't have a home to live. They don't have the health care that they need, and I am including mental health in that. And they don't have the happiness. We've all seen the recent statistics where our region heralds a lot of unhappy women. I personally am one of them. So the first thing that I would be doing is I would be looking at everything and I'd be saying, right, we need to do this and we need to do that. We need to do that in a humane and appropriate way, in a quick way. We need to look at our infrastructure. I asked Mr. Seiling about water. Apparently I found out that Cambridge is paying $2 million in wasted water because of leaky infrastructure. And I asked what the amount was for the region in total, and Mr. Seiling isn't aware of that. I'm concerned about that. I want to know how much water is going underground. I want to know why maybe we aren't fixing that. Understanding, of course, that the government is involved. When I asked him earlier about homelessness, he said, well, that's a provincial issue. Well, actually, his position is to advocate with the province on all of our behalf, and he doesn't know how he's going to do that. So I would appreciate an answer to that. The next thing that we need is we need accountability.
Yes.
We need accountability. We need to have an open and transparent government where somebody like me who has been running around like a chicken with her head cut off, with all due respect to the chicken, to try to find out the most basic of facts so that I can come here and present myself an educated woman.
That is time. Thank you so much, Mr. Seiling. You're a popular man. Would you like to respond?
Not sure how.
Thank you.
Well, I would say, first of all, in terms of open accountability, I think we run a very open and accountable operation. We're governed by municipal act, we run very, very openly. We don't force people to FOI requests very often. Our policy has been really, if people want information, they're going to get through an FOI release without charging for it, without them going through the FOI process. We do that very clearly. Our minutes are published, our agendas are online, everything is there for everybody to see. Our closed meetings are very short, we do very little in caucus, relatively speaking, to many other municipalities. Their lower tiers have more issues, so they probably need more in caucus, but we don't do a lot of caucus meetings. Everything is done openly, we're televised, we're webcast all of our meetings, we respond to people very well. In terms of homelessness, I work with the province all the time, so I know how to deal with the province. The problem is getting the province to react on some of these fronts. And in fact, this government, the new government, is in fact announcing new initiatives, and we're working very closely with them to try and do that sort of thing. But we have to work all the time. There isn't the federal government withdrew from a lot of fields, child care, withdrew largely, not totally from the housing field, but it hasn't got an active housing policy. We work hard to do that, and we've got an opportunity in elections next year to push that agenda with them. So there are lots of opportunities to do that sort of thing. In terms of water leakage, that's an area of municipal responsibility. The estimates are about 10% leakage, and we're probably working very hard. They and their ratepayers have to pay the cost of that lost water. And it's lost water in our system, so we assist them in some cases, but we work very hard to minimize water loss in the system.
All right. We'll get to the next.